Plus 49.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Plus 49. I am your host, Sigrid Arteaga, and today we have Ask a German, news, events, and of course our interview. But before that, let's get into our highlights. Here are some updates for this week regarding the job market in Germany. As part of the new Wachstumsinitiative growth initiative, the German government has announced a new law that will make job center visits a monthly requirement for people receiving the long-term unemployment benefit known as Bürgergeld. Under this new regulation, having phone or email contact with job center will no longer be sufficient. According to the coalition, these in-person meetings are intended to increase contact density and ensure that existing integration opportunities are better utilized. The government believes that regular face-to-face interactions will enhance support for job seekers and improve their chances of finding employment. As for right now, it remains unclear when the rules will be introduced and to whom they will be applied exactly. Transitioning to another important topic. Due to a high demand on professionals in various sectors, the state government in Niedersachsen is taking steps to facilitate the immigration of skilled workers from abroad. The plan is to establish one central immigration authority to rationalize the process, replacing the current system that involves 52 local foreign authorities. This reform aims to create uniform procedures and consolidate expertise within one single agency, making it easier for both employers and potential employees. Employers will be able to apply for an accelerated skilled worker procedure for a fee of 411 euros, provided they have a specific job offer. Interim Minister Daniela Behrens stated that this initiative will help international professionals access the German job market more quickly and relieve pressure on local foreign authorities. The new central authority is set to be operational by the first half of 2025. Fall has reached its peak in Germany, with leaves turning red and the days gradually getting colder and darker. But have you ever wondered how Germans spent this beautiful season? Well, the scenery invites people to go outside and enjoy the crisp air while it's still not too freezing. And that is exactly what many Germans do. One cherished activity is collecting various nuts, such as chestnuts and walnuts. Children and adults alike venture into the parks and forests to gather these natural treasures. Once collected, the nuts serve multiple purposes. Many families use them for baking seasonal treats like nut cakes or pastries that are enjoyed during gatherings. Others may choose to make homeline liqueurs infused by the rich flavors of these nuts. Additionally, they can be enjoyed as a healthy snack throughout the year. But beyond culinary uses, collected chestnuts often find their way into crafting projects that celebrate autumn. One popular craft involves making chestnut figures. Using toothpicks or small wooden sticks, children and adults, of course, can connect chestnuts to create fun shapes like animals, people, or even fantastical creatures. This also applies to fallen leaves, which can be used to create beautiful seasonal displays. Before getting creative with the leaves, Germans usually press and dry them by placing heavy books on top of the leaves. This process removes oxygen and moisture, allowing them to last longer. Children can then use glue to attach pressed leaves onto paper or canvas to form stunning collages that showcase the vibrant colors of autumn. Another creative use for dried leaves is making homemade greeting cards or gift tags. By gluing pressed leaves onto cardstocks and adding personal messages, you can create unique cards that capture the essence of the season. In addition to crafting with nuts and leaves, another popular fall activity in Germany is kite flying. As the winds pick up during the season, families and friends gather in parks or open fields to fly colorful kites against the backdrop of clear skies. In summary, fall in Germany offers a variety of activities and a lot of DIY. From collecting nuts for baking and crafting to creating art with leaves and flying kites. There are countless ways to families to embrace this vibrant season together. These insights come directly from our producer, Marlene Baja, who has been telling us what she did or what she did when she was a small kid while she was in school. So today we have a very interesting guest with us. He is a German, but he's living in the US, which is a great opportunity for us to talk about culture as a German, not in Germany, but outside. His name is Christian Höferle. Did I say that right?
You said it better than any American I ever met.
Okay, that's very nice to hear. And you are the founder and owner of the Culture Mastery, and you're specialized in culture.
That would be a very quick definition. Yes, I think that's what we do. I
That's
know
what
that's what we do. And I'm completely flabbergasted that we're doing this in English now, because in the green room we were talking in German. So all right, let's do this in English.
you
Fantastic.
But you have a great, well, you're living in the US for how long now?
I've lived in this country for 21 years and change. I stopped counting. I lived a year in Minnesota, which is the upper Midwest if you look at the map, it's dead center of the country bordering Canada. I spent a year there as a high school student, and I've lived in the Tennessee Valley for 13 years, and I've been now in Atlanta, Georgia for almost 8 years.
So you have been in the middle of the US. You have been experiencing what it is to be a German outside of Germany. Do you still remember what that cultural shock feeling was?
I do, even though I'm not a big fan of that term, culture shock, because to me, a shock is something that really is a disturbance, a perturbance of your cognitive system. I think what I experienced were more surprising situations that I could not make sense of. And those were different in different places. The cultural adjustment I felt in Minnesota was different than the one in the Tennessee Valley. And I found new surprising situations when we moved to Atlanta. All of these places had their own unique character, their own unique subculture of the US. And I think what these areas or these regions have in common, and I think what would be a common experience for non-Americans coming to the US, is the fact that people in the United States, even though the Border Patrol might be very intimidating and fear-inducing and maybe rigid, once you pass the gate, once you're inside, the people in the country tend to be quite welcoming. And if they're not welcoming, at least they're very curious, because they hear an accent, they see me clothed in a different way, they see me eating different stuff, and maybe they overhear me speaking my native language with my family members. So there's usually always some level of curiosity. So it's not the fear of the foreign that I would think still exists in many parts of Germany. It's more the curiosity and who are you? Where did you come from? And what is that place called? And what is it like there? And how do you like it here? So it's more this openness to that which is unfamiliar, rather than the, oh, you don't sound like us, you must be from somewhere else, I'm not sure if I can trust you yet, which is the experience I still feel when I'm in Germany or in German speaking countries.
I do have to say it might have a little bit to do that you're German in the US. For me, even though I don't look Mexican, once I say that I'm from Mexico, then the door shuts really fast.
Yeah, that's a different experience. I'm not denying that. Any type of Latino coming to Estados Unidos, you're always under a special scrutiny, because there might be the perception of, are you here legally? Did you go through the right gateway? And do you have the paperwork? My whiteness certainly is a privilege. I will not deny that. And funny though, being German abroad in Europe feels a lot different than being German in North America.
What were you meaning?
I think I'm a German of a certain generation. So I'm a Generation X. So I was raised in a Germany that existed in two parts. There was a West and an East Germany. And I was raised in the awareness of my grandparents' crimes against humanity, right? So we were very much raised with the historic context of our country and our ancestors. And traveling throughout Europe, my Germanness always came with a little bit of a stigma, or at least I felt that it comes with a stigma. That of the aggressor, that of the unlikable characteristics, the stereotypes that often are associated with Germany. I know this is not true. I know this is not how the world feels necessarily about Germans, yet in my youthful ignorance, that's what I perceived it to be. And if you look at the policies that came out of Germany during the 2010s, the Euro crisis, the austerity policies by the Merkel government that led to Mediterranean governments having to tighten their purse strings and be more fiscally conservative, all of these overbearing, overpowering German attributes re-emerged. So talking to people from Greece, from Italy, from Spain, from Portugal, I sometimes felt I needed to moderate my Germanness, right? Here in the United States, being German comes with like a deposit in the welcome account, right? It's like, oh, you're German. Oh, that's cool. Lederhosen, Dirndl, Pretzel, Polka music, beer, Oktoberfest, Umpa Umpa Tetere, which is quite funny because I'm Bavarian, so a lot of those stereotypes fit me quite well. I have a pair of lederhosen in my closet, and I do occasionally like a good beer. But the stereotypes about Germany in the US seem to be a lot more positive, even though you might watch a Hollywood movie or a TV production, and whenever there's a German character in the story, it's usually a villain or it's some kind of Nazi character. But the overall attitude towards Germans, at least the time that I spent here, has been overwhelmingly positive, something that I did not experience the same way in Europe.
I think that it's a beautiful way of perceiving things. I can relate because in Mexico, I am the German, and I'm not that structured, to be honest. In Germany, I am the Latin, and I love being the Latin. I love it because I can be alive and I can be a mess, and it's great. And it's like, oh, Latina, Mexicana, which is already an amazing experience, quite very different as if I'm coming to the US. In the US, I've been getting this question all the time. Are you here legally? What are you doing here? Why can you speak English? Do you have donkeys in your house? It's just like, yeah, all those stereotypes do happen. I mean,
You make your own tequila.
yes, not even that. Once they asked me if I knew what movies were.
Well, I mean, there are some uneducated people everywhere in the world, and I've had questions like, "Is Hitler still alive?" and stuff like that. Yeah, sure. You deal with that. I think those stories are often, at least in my experience, are often a bit overblown. Yes, most Germans or most Europeans know more about the United States than people from the US know about Europe, because it's not a perfect two-way street of interest. But still, most people in the US have a fairly good grasp of what the transatlantic relationship is like. And it really depends on what type of socioeconomic and educational backgrounds you interact with, right?
Dear Christian, so tell us a little bit about your adventure in this intercultural communications world.
I came to it by accident. I was a journalist in my first career. I worked in the music industry. And then we moved to the United States, and a German company that is well known around the world. They make cars, and they also make cars in Mexico, and they make cars in Germany and in Brazil. And they decided to build a plant in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And that's where we lived at the time, which was fantastic because billions upon billions of dollars of foreign investment, creating new jobs, fantastic. And then the Tennessee people looked at each other and said, have we ever worked with Germans? Does anyone know how to work with Germans? No, no, no. Oh, wait a minute. I know this guy with a last name that nobody can pronounce. He might be able to help us. And that's how I got started. And then I got a phone call from Wolfsburg, and some Volkswagen people said, can you help us with this and that? And that's how the company got started.
How do you start a conversation when people say, "Oh, the German Hitler, right?"
Has never happened.
That is great. That is great news because somehow it is kind of, maybe it's because they are always asking me, the Mexican, like, "Oh, I don't know, maybe it's because they've never really interacted with someone that German."
No, it's more like beer, right? Or good cars, right? Oktoberfest, right? So it goes more into the positives, or what Americans perceive as positive stereotypes. However, one caveat: interacting with Jewish Americans, the conversations are quite different and very educational for me.
I didn't want to talk to politics, but the question is there. Has it changed since last year, the feeling in the Jewish community towards you or towards the world itself?
Not for me, because we somehow, my wife and I, we have a very robust circle of Jewish friends. In fact, it was something that would have never happened to me had I stayed in Munich, where I moved from. Might be different in Berlin, where you have a stronger Jewish presence, but in Munich, there isn't much of Jewish life, or none that I was introduced to while I lived there. Now living here in the US, my wife coached a rabbi for many, many years, and she told him, I cannot be a coach. And he said, yes, you should be. You will help me get better. And why wouldn't you? And she said, because I'm German and I'm blonde. And how does this work? And he said, exactly, that's why I want you. And all of these things, all of these German hangups that I had about German-Jewish relations, they got obliterated by being in touch with people of Jewish faith. So the people of Jewish faith in my circles, their relationship to me is unchanged. The way they feel able to express their Jewishness in public since October 7th of last year has changed.
Okay.
Because they're, just like we see a growth of anti-Semitic aggression in the German-speaking world, we've also seen anti-Semitic activities here in the United States. And for me as a German, that is very difficult to deal with. I'm not going to lie.
It is a hard topic, and that is probably something that we will need to keep addressing and finding ways to talk about it, and not just like shove it under the carpet, because this is where, when we don't talk about things, it's when the resentment comes up.
Yeah.
But we're talking about culture in another way, and before we leave you, what would your suggestions be for those internationals arriving in Germany and trying to understand Germany, and understanding that they cannot really go and say like, hi, I'm sorry, how do you do this? Because Germans are not that open.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the word selbstverständlich, because you cannot translate it, because you cannot say like, oh, it is understandable so that you do this and this, because there is no talk about what is actually German or typical here. As you were just saying, this Rechtschreibnis, oh God, I don't know how to even say it. But anyhow, so what would there be suggestions that you will give them?
Well, we do this often. We train a lot of expatriates going to Germany, and a common recommendation is forgive them and forgive yourself, right? I know it's a very Christian principle, but I think it permeates other religions as well. Forgiveness prevents resentment. So if we can forgive ourselves for not knowing how to interact in this new culture, then you're okay with the mistakes you make. You will always step on people's toes, and forgive those who don't welcome you the way you would like to be welcomed, because they don't know better. So I think that's where it starts. And then I think the second step is being vulnerable and humble in accepting that you just don't know it yet. And for adults moving across the world, this is sometimes very difficult, because when they move, they usually move because of a specific reason. They're good at something, and that's why their expertise or their skill set is requested somewhere else. So you come with a certain sense of importance. I am good at something, and now I'm going abroad and I'm doing this abroad, and I'm going to be very successful abroad as well. So the sense of humility and vulnerability to admit publicly that you don't know something, that can be helpful. It's not easy, but it's helpful. So when you ask a German that question that they will probably be reluctant to respond to or be bewildered, why would this foreign strange person talk to me out of the blue? Who are they? Why would they think I would be their resource? But if you do that with a sense of humility and vulnerability, saying, hey, I'm sorry, I know I should know better, I don't know yet, can you help me? I think this goes a long way. And the forgiveness remains intact, hopefully, because sometimes you will get an answer from a German that will not satisfy you, or you might get a response that is emotionally jarring. Forgive them and ask the next person, because as you enter a foreign culture, the obligation is on you to make the connection. We can talk about Willkommenskultur and welcoming foreigners with open arms until the cows come home. But if you're a foreigner entering a new place, your expectation of that should be zero. It is the person who enters that space, it's their obligation to do what is within their power to get the information that they need. I cannot change somebody else's behavior. The only behavior that I'm in charge of is my own. And if the person that I'm interacting with is behaving in a way that's unpleasant to me, then I need to find a way to deal with it. It may not always be easy, but if we can forgive that, if it doesn't work out, then you'll be at peace and move on.
I love it. I love it so much. I think we should definitely do a quote about this because, yes, it is forgiveness and knowing that you're going to mess up.
Yeah.
And it's very important.
None of us are perfect, even though Germans would like to think of themselves that they will be perfect at some point. Dear fellow Germans, whenever you think you've reached perfection, guess what? There's a level that is above that, so you'll never be perfect.
Sadly, this is our last segment with Christian. Yet we will definitely invite you back again to keep talking about the other side of the coin. But Christian, what is typical German for you? But now in the understanding of being a German in the US, maybe things that you have not really seen before and you just got to experience them because you were a foreigner in another country.
Yeah, I want to start with a metaphor and a quote that is often used in our industry. So our industry is cultural training and coaching. So we work with clients who cross cultures and we help them adjust to these differences. And there's an old metaphor of the fish who cannot see water. And the fish always is in water, and the water is the medium, the culture that it is surrounded by, and it doesn't pay attention to the water. And once the fish swims into a different type of water, then the fish realizes, oh, this is the medium I am in, and now it looks different, it tastes different, it smells different. I'm still in water, but it's different. I didn't realize that I am a water living creature. So culture usually hides more than it reveals. And it hides it best from its own members. So if we are Mexicans in Mexico, we don't have to think about our Mexicanness because we're surrounded by it every day. If we're Germans in Germany, we are surrounded by Germanness all day. And what makes us so weird does not come to our attention because we're surrounded by it every day. So now that I live outside of my own culture, Germanness shows up. And I become aware of my own freaky Germanness sometimes. Some of it is a Germanness that I moved away from and I let go. Like I'm particularly not fond of the German Rechthaberei, the desire to be right, to be a better knower, a Besserwisser. And what I think what's also very German is a socially acceptable mechanism of correction is complaining. Germans, I don't know if they like it, but they do it frequently. They openly complain about something that is not right to them, whether or not they're correct about it, but they openly express their dissatisfaction. They complain openly in hopes that this would change the situation. What I still see is very typical German is a sense of universality of rules, that we have rules, whether or not we like them or we approve of them, but somehow as a collective consensus, we decided this is the rule for this situation in life. So now that this is the rule, the expectation is that everybody follows it. And if you don't, there will be a complaint or there will be punishment. worst case. Living in a culture where not everybody abides by the rules every time still irks me. After 20 plus years driving on US roads and people are violating traffic rules still gets my blood boiling behind the wheel. And I recognize it in myself, like, dude, chill out. It's not that important. But I recognize it. I would prefer if people followed the rules. And I'm perfectly aware that I'm being super German about this. And my American friends they roll their eyes and think, oh gosh, Christian again. Here he goes with his rules.
I love it. I have to say, I do love it, especially because we have had this topic a million times here, or not a million, 18 episodes. We have been talking about this, and we actually even have a special section that's called Ask a German, which now you're going to be our person who's going to answer it in the next segment. But for the moment, we need to say thank you very much. And thank you so much for being with us. And hopefully we'll be back with you. But before that, give us all your information in case someone wants to get in touch with you.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Es un placer de conocerte. The information would be, find us online, theculturemastery.com. It's with the article, The Culture Mastery, or you find me on LinkedIn, Christian Höferle, with an umlaut, with an Ö. That is so hard to pronounce for a lot of people. I didn't choose the name. It runs in the family, apparently. So find me on LinkedIn, find me on our website, and we'll take it from there.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Plus 49. Ask a German.
Dear German Christian, I would love to know what will be your suggestions for us internationals in integrating and understanding Germans better?
It's a twofold answer. First, remember ZDF, which is not the TV station. It means Zahlen, Daten, Fakten, numbers, data, facts. That is how you convince a German, not with emotions, which is tough if you come from a culture that is more relationship and emotionally focused. So Germans are super factual at first, but that's the outside of the coconut shell. If you know how to work that coconut shell on the outside, which is ugly and brown and fibrous and tough and hard and not pleasant to look at, but if you work hard enough, if you bring enough patience with your ZDF, you will crack the coconut shell. And beauty is inside that coconut because there's no more resistance. There is coconut water, there is coconut meat, there is substance, and there is deep, deep connection. And you become a Freund, which is very different from a friend. It may sound similar, it is not the same thing. And if you become a German Freund, you will be that for a lifetime. But you need to bring the patience, you need to be factual and reliable and ZDF focused until you can access the emotional side.
That is a wrap for today's episode here on Plus 49. Thank you so much for listening, and follow us on our social media on Instagram at Plus 49 and on our webpage www.plus49.de. Hasta la próxima.